Rain hammered against the cracked windows of the small New Jersey apartment as Claire Wyndham stood frozen in the doorway, her fingers still wrapped around the handle of her worn-out suitcase. She hadn't even taken her shoes off when her husband, Darren Cole, slid a stack of legal papers across the kitchen counter like he was handing over a restaurant bill. No hesitation, no guilt, just cold efficiency from a man she had once believed would protect her. "Sign it, Claire," Darren said, not bothering to look at her. He was dressed in a tailored shirt too expensive for their income, the cuffs still creased from the rooftop cocktail party he'd attended with a woman Claire had never met but had already imagined too well. "This marriage is suffocating both of us. And frankly, I can't carry you anymore." His voice cut her deeper than she expected. Carry her? She had worked double shifts as a pediatric nurse to support him through his failed real estate ventures, even when she barely slept. Yet now, after a year of fertility treatments that drained both their finances and her hope, he was simply done. "Darren, we can fix this," Claire whispered, her throat tight. He finally looked at her, only to show nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just boredom. "I don't want a wife who drags me down. Madison says—" He stopped, realizing he'd said too much. But the damage was done. Claire didn't need the rest of the sentence. "Madison says she deserves more. Madison says you're the problem." Her hands trembled, not from rage, from heartbreak so quiet and deep it felt like drowning. She picked up the pen, signed her name, and Darren exhaled in relief, like she had done him a favor. It was only when she turned toward the door that a wave of dizziness blurred her vision. She steadied herself on the frame, pretending it was nothing. She'd been tired for weeks, nausea too, stress, she had assumed. Behind her, Darren said flatly, "Be out by tonight. Madison's helping me stage the place for buyers." Claire lifted her suitcase and walked into the rain, the papers still warm from her touch. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know how much more she could take. All she knew was that something inside her felt different. Different in a way that would soon rewrite everything Darren's life, most of all. And the first sign of that truth was already growing quietly under her heart. Claire Wyndham had never considered herself extraordinary. She wasn't born into money, didn't wear designer clothes, and didn't have the kind of beauty that made people stop on the street. What she did have was kindness, the kind you couldn't fabricate even if you tried. Growing up in a modest Pennsylvania town with a mother who worked 2 jobs and a father who disappeared when she was 12, Claire learned early that survival required softness in some places and steel in others. By the time she was 28, she'd shaped her life around helping others. She became a pediatric nurse, the person parents trusted when their children were fragile, scared, or hooked up to machines that beeped in the night. Claire was always the one kneeling beside the hospital bed, speaking softly, brushing a curl away from a child's forehead. She seemed to have a glow, not glamorous, but warm, steady, real. Maybe that was what drew Darren to her in the beginning. They met in a grocery store, both reaching for the same carton of milk. He had flashed a movie star smile. She had laughed nervously. That night he told her she was refreshing in a world full of people pretending to be more than they were. She believed him. She believed every promise he made about a future, about stability, about never letting her feel alone. But the man who once held her hand through night shifts slowly disappeared beneath layers of resentment and ambition. As Darren's career dreams inflated, so did his ego. He wanted a lifestyle they couldn't afford, rooftop lounges, tailored shirts, the illusion of success. And when Claire's fertility struggles became a weight on their finances and emotions, he grew distant, cold, then cruel. Still, she loved him. Still, she tried. She worked double shifts at the pediatric ward, often slipping into the supply closet to cry before returning with a smile. She sold jewelry inherited from her mother to help pay for infertility treatments he rarely thanked her for. She told herself marriages went through storms, that Darren just needed time. But deep down, she feared something more painful, that he was ashamed of her. The night she walked out with her suitcase was not the first time she had been abandoned, but it was the first time she truly felt disposable. Claire spent the first hours after the divorce hunched on her friend Rachel's couch, clutching a mug of coffee she couldn't drink. Rachel, a fellow nurse with a blunt personality and a tired Subaru, had always said Darren wanted the world but didn't want to earn it. Claire used to defend him. She didn't anymore. "You're not okay," Rachel said softly, sitting beside her. Claire nodded. "I don't even know who I am without him." But that wasn't true, not entirely. Claire had always been stronger than people realized. She'd built her life from scraps before. She could do it again. Still, something inside her felt off. The dizziness hadn't left. Her stomach fluttered strangely, not anxiety, not grief, something else. Rachel noticed the way she pressed a hand to her abdomen. "Claire, are you late?" Claire blinked. The question hit her like a physical force. She hadn't tracked her cycle in months. Stress muddled everything. Heartache blurred the rest. But now that Rachel said it, her hands shook. Her chest tightened. Her mind raced. "No," Claire whispered. "It can't be. Not now, not after everything." But the fear in her eyes wasn't fear alone. It was something deeper, something impossible, something that would change the story of her life forever. And before midnight, she would discover the truth that Darren had thrown away without ever knowing it existed. The morning after the divorce, Claire woke to the muted hum of traffic outside Rachel's modest apartment. Sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds, landing on the pile of unfolded blankets where she'd slept. Everything smelled faintly of coffee and old books, a comforting scent in contrast to the cold emptiness she had left behind. It was strange how quickly life could shrink. Yesterday she had a home broken, yes, but still a home. Today she had a borrowed couch, a duffel bag, and a future shaped only by uncertainty. Rachel had already left for her 6 a.m. shift at the hospital, but she'd stuck a note on the fridge. "Eat something. Rest. Call me if you start crying again." Beneath it was a post-it with a tiny doodle of Claire holding a sword, like some tired, underpaid warrior. Claire almost smiled. By mid-morning, she forced herself outside. The streets of Newark felt grayer than usual, as if the world was reflecting her own exhaustion. People moved with purpose, heading to offices, schools, grocery stores. Everyone seemed to know where they belonged. Where did she belong now? She wandered into a small neighborhood clinic where she used to volunteer. The receptionist, an older woman named Mrs. Halpern, noticed her pale complexion immediately. "Claire, honey, you look like you've seen a ghost." I think I'm just overwhelmed," Claire murmured. But she couldn't shake the heaviness in her chest, the nausea rising again like a warning she didn't dare interpret. She asked for a quick appointment, just a routine check, she told herself. A way to rule things out, a way to confirm that the flutter in her stomach was simply stress and nothing more. While waiting, she stared at the faded posters on the wall, smiling babies, diagrams of fetal development, encouragements for prenatal care. The images stung. Not long ago, she and Darren sat in offices like this together, holding hands, praying for news they never received. Now she sat alone. When the nurse finally called her in, Claire's heart was pounding. The room was small, nearly identical to the ones she worked in sterile counters, a humming old ultrasound machine, medical gloves tucked neatly in their boxes. "Are you feeling any abdominal pain?" the nurse asked. "Some dizziness. Fatigue. I just wanted to check." End quote. The nurse offered a sympathetic nod and stepped out for a moment. Claire's eyes drifted toward the sonogram screen, its dark, glossy surface reflecting a distorted version of her face. When the doctor entered, he recognized her immediately. "Claire Wyndham? You used to assist at St. Mary's pediatric unit, right?" She nodded. He listened patiently as she described her symptoms. His expression softened. "Let's run a test, just to be sure." Minutes felt like hours as Claire waited. Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve, her breath shallow. She tried to imagine what she'd do if the test was positive, but the thought was too big, too surreal to process. The doctor returned, holding a clipboard. He sat down gently, almost cautiously. "Claire, you're pregnant." The words fell into the room like a stone into still water, heavy, rippling, irreversible. Her throat closed. Tears blurred her vision. She didn't know whether to laugh or break apart completely. "Pregnant," she repeated, barely audible. But the doctor wasn't finished. "Given your symptoms, I'd like to run an ultrasound today, just to make sure everything looks stable." Stable. The word chilled her. Nothing in her life was stable. She followed him toward the dimly lit ultrasound room, her pulse drumming in her ears. As she lay back and the cool gel touched her skin, Claire closed her eyes. Whatever appeared on that screen would change everything. And in the next 60 seconds, The image would reveal a truth far more shocking than she could ever imagine. The ultrasound room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of the monitor. Claire lay back on the narrow table, the paper crinkling beneath her as she pulled her sweater higher. Her breath shook. She was used to comforting other women in rooms like this, not being the one trembling under the machine's probe. Dr. Garrison, a calm man with silver-rimmed glasses, moved the wand gently across her abdomen. The gel was cold, but not as cold as the fear tightening her chest. She kept her eyes on the ceiling tiles, afraid to look at the screen, afraid of seeing nothing at all or seeing something she wasn't ready to face. Then the room filled with a sound she had only ever heard in her dreams. A heartbeat. Fast, strong, beautiful. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "Congratulations, Doctor," Garrison whispered. "There's your baby. A baby. Her baby. The one she once believed she would never have." Tears welled in her eyes, but before she could fully take in the moment, the doctor's brows knitted. He leaned closer to the monitor, adjusting the angle, his expression sharpening with focus. "Hold on," he murmured. Claire's stomach dropped. "Is something wrong?" "No, not wrong." He shifted the wand again. "But there's more." "More?" Her eyes darted to the screen. "Doctor." Garrison pressed a button, and the shape split, then another appeared beside it. 2 round silhouettes, 2 flickering heartbeats. "Claire," he said softly, "you're carrying twins." Twins. 2 babies. 2 heartbeats pulsing in rhythm like a duet composed just for her. Her hand flew to her mouth. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She had gone from believing she would never be a mother to suddenly envisioning 2 cribs, 2 tiny blankets, 2 futures intertwined. But then, "Doctor." Garrison froze again. His voice lowered to something almost reverent. "Wait. Don't panic. Let me confirm this." The wand moved slower now, as if the air itself had thickened. Claire's pulse thundered in her ears. She gripped the sides of the bed, every muscle in her body coiled. Another shape revealed itself. Smaller, tucked in a corner of the screen like it was hiding. Another heartbeat, this one faint but unmistakable. Dr. Garrison exhaled in awe. "Claire, you're not carrying twins." Unquote. He turned the monitor toward her fully, the image glowing like a miracle. "You're carrying triplets." Triplets. The world spun, her vision blurred. 3 heartbeats, 3 lives, 3 unexpected answers to every prayer she had whispered in the dark. She had begged the universe for 1 miracle, and somehow received 3. Emotion crashed through her like a tidal wave. Joy, terror, wonder, disbelief, the kind of overwhelm that makes your soul tremble. "Triplets?" Her voice cracked. "Are they safe?" "For now, yes," the doctor assured. "But this will be a high-risk pregnancy. You'll need monitoring, support, stability." Stability. A word that echoed like an accusation. Because the father of these children had thrown her out into the rain only 1 night earlier, he didn't just abandon her, he abandoned them before he even knew they existed. Claire pressed a trembling palm to her belly. She wasn't alone, not anymore. Not ever again. But responsibility thundered inside her. How would she afford this? Where would she live? How could she protect 3 fragile lives on her nursing salary, with no partner, no home, no certainty? And worse, what would Darren do if he found out? As Dr. Garrison handed her tissues, she stared at the glowing screen, at 3 tiny lights flickering like stars trapped in her womb. 3 heartbeats. 3 reasons to fight. 3 reasons she could never go back. And she had no idea that someone else was about to enter her life with news far more explosive than the triplets themselves. Claire wandered out of the clinic in a daze, the ultrasound images tucked carefully inside a thin envelope that suddenly felt heavier than her entire life. 3 heartbeats, 3 futures, 3 reasons she couldn't afford to collapse, even though her legs trembled with each step. The cold air slapped against her cheeks as she stepped onto the sidewalk, forcing her to breathe. She didn't go back to Rachel's apartment immediately. Instead, she walked aimlessly through downtown Newark, passing coffee shops, bus stops, people glued to their phones, an entire world that kept moving, while hers had just shattered and reborn all at once. Every few minutes, she pressed a hand over her belly, as if confirming the triplets were still real, still hers. But reality came crashing back with a harsher thought. How am I supposed to raise 3 babies alone? Her phone buzzed with a message from Darren. The screen lit up with his name. She almost dropped it. I'll send someone to get the rest of your things. Don't come back. Not a single word asking if she was okay. Not a single hint of regret. She shut off her phone and stuffed it deep into her coat pocket. As she turned a corner, a sleek black sedan pulled up beside the curb. The windows were tinted, the paint immaculate, the kind of car no one in her neighborhood usually drove. Claire instinctively stepped back. A man stepped out. Tall, composed, his charcoal suit perfectly tailored. He looked like he belonged in a Manhattan boardroom, not on a cracked Newark sidewalk. His presence was so sharp it felt like he cut through the air. "Miss Claire Wyndham?" he asked, voice firm but strangely gentle. Claire froze. "Yes. Do I know you?" He shook his head. "My name is Ethan Mercer. I'm an attorney with the firm Mercer, Hale, and Roth. I've been searching for you for several weeks." Claire's confusion deepened. Why would an attorney be looking for me? Ethan opened a leather folio, revealing documents with embossed seals. "It concerns the estate of Evelyn Wyndham Hale." Claire's breath snagged. "My grandmother?" A grandmother. She barely remembered her mother's estranged mother, a woman whose name had been spoken only in whispers. Claire had no idea she was still alive, no idea she had money, no idea she had been looking for Claire before she passed. "I'm sorry for your loss," Ethan said quietly. "Your grandmother left behind a substantial estate, and she named you as her sole heir." Claire blinked, struggling to absorb the words. I don't understand. I didn't even know she cared about me." "She did," Ethan replied. "More than you know. She spent years trying to find you. And in her final months, she made preparations to secure your future." Claire's legs wobbled. "Secure my future? How?" Ethan hesitated, not out of uncertainty, but out of respect for the weight his next words carried. "The inheritance is valued at roughly $200 million. Claire's world tilted. The sidewalk seemed to sway beneath her feet. 200 million? Her? Now when she was homeless, pregnant, abandoned? She gripped the edge of a newspaper stand to steady herself. "Miss Wyndham," Ethan continued, "there is much to discuss. Your grandmother also left letters for you, personal letters. She wanted you to know her reasons." Claire felt something crack open inside her: hope, fear, disbelief, blending into something fragile and overwhelming. But Ethan wasn't finished. "For your safety," he said, lowering his voice, "we need to relocate you immediately. There are additional complications regarding your former husband." Claire stiffened. "What complications?" Ethan glanced around before stepping closer. "Your grandmother wasn't just wealthy. She had enemies. And now so do you." And before Claire could ask a single question, a shadow moved behind her, too close, too sudden, forcing Ethan to pull her toward the car as he hissed, "Don't turn around." Ethan's warning echoed in Claire's ears long after he pulled her into the back seat of the sedan. Her pulse hammered violently, louder even than the rain starting to tap against the windows. Someone had been standing behind her, someone close enough to reach her. But by the time she gathered the courage to glance back through the tinted rear window, the sidewalk was empty, except for a trash bin and a man walking his dog. "Who was that?" she whispered. "We can't be sure yet," Ethan replied, his tone steady but undeniably tense. "Your grandmother had business holdings that drew the wrong kind of attention. If someone realized her heir has finally been located, they might try to track you before the estate is settled." Claire's fingers tightened around the seatbelt. "I'm just a nurse. I don't belong in any of this." Ethan looked at her through the rearview mirror. "You do now." The car pulled onto the highway, heading toward Manhattan. The city skyline emerged through the fog, a jagged silver crown rising out of the gray. Claire usually found comfort in that view. Today, it felt like a wall she was unprepared to climb. Her mind spun relentlessly, triplets growing inside her, an inheritance she didn't understand, strangers possibly following her. And Darren, she hadn't even begun to think about how he would react if he found out she was pregnant. Or worse, if he found out about the money. The pressure built in her chest until she could barely breathe. Once they crossed into the city, Ethan guided her into a quiet office building near Bryant Park. The lobby smelled faintly of cedar and old books, polished but intimidating. He led her to a private conference room where warm lights glowed against mahogany shelves filled with legal binders. When he asked her to sit, her legs buckled. The adrenaline wore off, and exhaustion swept through her so abruptly that she collapsed into the leather chair. "Claire," Ethan said gently, You've been hit with more life-changing news in one day than most people face in a decade. You're allowed to feel overwhelmed." She pressed her palms to her face. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be someone worth inheriting anything. And I definitely don't know how to protect 3 babies while I'm—" Her voice cracked. "Alone. Important." For the first time, Ethan hesitated. Not because he lacked words, but because he seemed to weigh them carefully, as if choosing ones she wouldn't crumble under. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. "Your grandmother planned for you to be cared for, and as your appointed attorney, my job is to protect you. Whatever comes." But his reassurance couldn't quiet the storm inside her. Tears blurred her vision until everything around her, papers, shelves, lights, melted into indistinct shapes. She felt like she was drowning in the life she used to want. Stability, security, a chance at motherhood. Now she had 3 babies, but no home, no partner, no certainty she'd make it through a high-risk pregnancy. A shuddering sob escaped before she could stop it. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I'm not strong enough." Ethan knelt beside her chair, lowering his voice to something grounding and steady. "You survived heartbreak. You survived being abandoned. You survived life hitting you from every direction. That makes you stronger than you think." But Claire shook her head, wiping trembling fingers across her eyes. "No, I'm breaking. I feel like everything is falling apart." At that moment, a sharp knock hit the conference room door. Ethan stiffened. "Stay behind me," he murmured, standing. Her breath stalled. Her heart lurched painfully. The door handle began to turn, and the person who stepped inside was the last face Claire ever expected to see someone who shouldn't have known where she was. The door swung open, slicing through the tension like a blade. Claire's breath hitched her entire body, preparing for the worst. But instead of a threat, instead of Darren or some unknown enemy, a woman stepped inside, petite, mid-50s, with tired eyes and a scarf wrapped neatly around her neck. "Claire," the woman whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan's posture eased only slightly. "Miss Wyndham, this is Dr. Lillian Shore, your grandmother's personal physician." She insisted on meeting Claire the moment she arrived. Claire blinked. "My grandmother's doctor?" Dr. Shore nodded, clutching a small leather-bound journal to her chest like it carried the weight of a lifetime. She stepped closer, and her expression softened into something painfully tender. "You look just like Evelyn did at your age," she murmured. Claire's breath caught. No one had ever compared her to the grandmother she barely remembered. Suddenly, she was 6 years old again, standing in a kitchen filled with the smell of vanilla and lavender, with a soft voice telling her stories she wasn't old enough to understand. Then the memories vanished, just like Evelyn had. "Why did she leave?" Claire whispered. "Why did she never come back?" Dr. Shore sat across from her, folding her hands carefully. "It wasn't her choice. Your mother. She ran away from the Hale family when you were a child. She wanted a simpler life, free from the pressure, the scrutiny, the danger that came with the Hale fortune." "Danger?" Claire repeated. Ethan shot the doctor a warning glance, but she pressed on anyway. "Your grandmother spent years searching for you. She refused to give up, and when her health began to decline, she realized she might never find you in time. So she prepared everything legal, protections, financial safeguards, people she trusted to step in if she passed before reconnecting with you." Dr. Shore's eyes glistened. "She never stopped loving you, Claire." Something cracked inside Claire, grief she didn't know she was carrying. A grandmother who hadn't abandoned her. A grandmother who fought for her until the very end. Someone who, unlike everyone else in her life, never stopped looking. "Dr." Shore opened the leather journal and handed it gently to Claire. "This is Evelyn's. She wrote entries for you during her last months. She wanted you to understand the truth, why she left, why she feared for you, and why the inheritance is more than money. It is protection." "Protection?" The word chilled her. But before she could ask, Ethan spoke, his voice low. "Claire, there's something else your grandmother wanted you to know. Something she instructed us to tell you only after confirming your identity." Dr. Shore nodded solemnly. "Your grandmother believed your life might be in danger from those who wanted control over the Hale Empire. That's why your name was erased from every record, why your mother hid you." Claire stared at them, the room suddenly too bright, too small. "So, I was never meant to live a normal life," she whispered. "I was hiding without even knowing I was hiding." "Yes," Dr. Shore said softly. "And now that you've been found, Others may start looking too. A tremor ran down Claire's spine. But Dr. Shore wasn't finished. Your grandmother also knew you longed to be a mother, she continued. She truly believed that if you ever conceived, your children would carry the Hale legacy in their blood. She instructed Ethan to provide enhanced security for you, should you ever become pregnant. Claire froze. Ethan went still. How would she know that? Claire whispered. Dr. Shore took a fragile breath. Because she knew you carried a rare genetic marker, a marker seen in only one other living Hale descendant. Claire's heart thudded painfully. One other? Who? Dr. Shore exchanged a grave look with Ethan. Ethan stepped forward, voice steady but heavy. Your triplets, Claire, are now the only living heirs to the Hale dynasty, and someone out there will stop at nothing to claim what belongs to them. 8. Before Claire could swallow the shock, Ethan's phone vibrated sharply, an emergency alert flashing across the screen with her name on it. Ethan's phone buzzed violently. He glanced at the screen, and all color drained from his face. What is it? Claire asked, gripping the edge of the conference table. Ethan inhaled slowly. Someone attempted to access your grandmother's sealed files that contain your location. Claire's blood ran cold. A part of her wanted to curl inward like a wounded animal. But another part, the one that carried 3 tiny heartbeats, forced her to stay upright. Dr. Shore stood. She cannot stay here. Stress is dangerous for the babies. We need to move her somewhere safe, private, and medically equipped. Ethan nodded. The penthouse on Central Park West is ready. Evelyn had it renovated for Claire years ago. Claire blinked. My grandmother prepared a home for me? She prepared a fortress, Ethan corrected softly. Everything happened fast after that. Within minutes, they escorted her back to the sedan. The city blurred past the windows, streetlights streaking like comets. By the time they reached Central Park West, night had fallen, and the building towered above her like a cathedral of glass and steel. A doorman opened the car door with a polite nod, unaware he was greeting the sole heir of a powerful dynasty. Inside, the elevator doors glided shut, and Claire stared at her reflection. Swollen eyes, trembling hands, hair pulled into a messy half-bun. She looked nothing like the woman who belonged in a penthouse overlooking Central Park. But soon, she would. The doors opened to a private foyer flooded with warm, golden light. The penthouse was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors veined like frozen lightning, a kitchen with sleek stainless steel appliances she didn't know how to pronounce. In the living room stood something unexpected. A crib. Small, hand-carved, white-lacquered, waiting. Claire pressed a hand to her lips. She always hoped you'd come back, Dr. Shore whispered. Claire walked toward the glass wall overlooking the park. The city sparkled like a universe scattered at her feet. For the first time in days, weeks, she felt air fill her lungs without burning. But then reality sank its claws in. I can't stay here, she whispered. I'm a mess. I don't belong in places like this. Ethan stepped beside her. You didn't choose this world, Claire. It chose you. And now, you have to rise to meet it. She turned to him, eyes glossy. How? I'm falling apart. You won't be, he said firmly, because starting tomorrow, you'll have a medical team monitoring your pregnancy. A nutritionist, a security detail, a financial advisor, and me. Claire's breath caught. And you? Why do you care so much? Ethan hesitated. His expression softened, not in a professional way, but something warmer, almost protective. Because your grandmother trusted me with her life's work, he said quietly. But now, I'm starting to want to protect you, not just her legacy. Claire's heart stuttered. She looked away. Ethan continued, gentler this time. We'll help you rebuild, piece by piece. You've survived the worst days of your life. Now, it's time to shape the rest. For the first time since Darren threw her out, Claire felt the faint flicker of strength inside her, not the desperate kind, but the kind that grows. She touched her stomach. Then I'll do it for them, she whispered. For all 3. Ethan gave a small, approving nod. Then everything changes tomorrow. If you ask for a foreman. But tomorrow came sooner than either of them expected. Because just as Claire turned toward the window again, lights from the street flashed like a camera. A figure stood outside the building, staring up at the penthouse. And in his hand was a photo of Claire. Ethan rushed to the window, his face darkening as he whispered, He shouldn't know you're here. For a long moment, Claire couldn't move. She stood frozen before the glass window of the penthouse, staring down at the silhouette on the sidewalk. The streetlights glowed against the wet pavement, stretching his shadow toward the building like a reaching hand. Her heartbeat thudded painfully against her ribs. Is that Darren?" she whispered. Ethan didn't answer immediately. His jaw tightened, the muscle twitching with restrained anger. "He shouldn't be able to track you," he muttered. "Your records are sealed. Your address is confidential." This was supposed to be impossible. But there Darren was, raincoat, dark hair plastered to his forehead, a plastic folder tucked under one arm. And in the other hand, a photograph of Claire leaving the clinic earlier that day. Claire's stomach dropped. "He's following me," she breathed. "Why? What does he want?" Ethan turned away from the window and grabbed his phone. "I'm calling security. You are not to go anywhere near him. If you won..." But Claire's legs were already moving. She didn't know what possessed her. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe anger. Maybe the crushing realization that for months she had allowed Darren to make her feel small, broken, invisible. Now he was standing on the sidewalk of her new life, of her grandmother's legacy, like he had a right to it. She wouldn't hide anymore. Ethan caught her wrist before she reached the elevator. "Claire, stop. You're not prepared for whatever he's planning. Thanks for watching. And we go intend it in have likes of." She pulled free, breath trembling. "I just want answers." Ethan stepped in front of her, blocking the elevator doors. "No, what he wants is control. That's what he's always wanted. And if he's holding your photo, he knows about the pregnancy." Claire's heart plummeted. How would he know? Ethan's silence answered for him. Someone had leaked, someone close enough to see her leave the clinic. Someone with a motive. The doors slid open, and Dr. Shore hurried in, her scarf damp from the misty air outside. "Security saw him," she said breathlessly. "He approached the entrance twice but didn't try to enter. He kept looking at the building directory. He seemed frantic." Claire swallowed. "Does he know I'm pregnant?" The doctor hesitated. "He knows something. And desperation makes people reckless." Ethan exhaled sharply and turned to Claire, his voice firm but protective. "You will not speak to him tonight. We'll have security escort him away. Tomorrow, we'll file a no-contact order." But Claire stepped back. For the first time since the divorce, a spark ignited behind her eyes, something fierce, something rising. "I'm done being afraid," she said quietly. "I'm not the broken woman he walked out on. I'm carrying 3 lives. I'm heir to a legacy he can't even comprehend. And if he thinks he can barge into my world again, he's wrong." Ethan softened, pride flickering faintly in his eyes. "Then let me stand with you when the time comes." Claire gave a small nod. "Tomorrow. On my terms." But before they could form a plan, a loud chime echoed from Ethan's phone. He glanced at the notification and his expression darkened. "Claire, security just reported something else." "What now?" she whispered. Ethan held up the phone, his voice dropping to a chilled register. "Darren didn't come alone." Claire felt the floor sway beneath her feet. "There's another man down there," Ethan continued. "He was seen watching your grandmother's penthouse 2 nights ago. He has ties to the Hale estate dispute. And he just walked up to Darren, as if they've met before." Claire's throat tightened. "What do they want?" Ethan closed the phone slowly. "To find you, to use you, and to claim your children as heirs to a fortune they believe belongs to them." The room went silent, thick with dread. Then Dr. Shore whispered, "Claire, they're forming an alliance." And as all 3 turned back toward the window, the 2 men on the street lifted their heads, staring directly at the penthouse as if they already knew she was watching. The next morning began with a blur of phone calls, hushed conversations, and tightened security around the penthouse. Claire barely slept. Every time she drifted off, she saw Darren's face reflected in the glass, haunted, desperate, and far too close to the truth. Worse, the other man unknown, cold-eyed, carried the kind of menace that didn't rely on emotion at all. By sunrise, New York felt different, heavy, expectant. Ethan stood near the kitchen island, reviewing a stack of documents with clipped precision, while Dr. Shore hovered beside the windows, checking her phone repeatedly. Neither seemed at ease. Claire clutched a cup of tea in both hands, trying to quiet the tremor in her fingers. Her grandmother's leather journal rested open beside her, its cursive writing a lifeline she didn't know she needed. She read another line. You will not understand the danger until it stands at your door, but you will not face it alone. As if on cue, Ethan's phone buzzed sharply. He answered immediately. Yes, this is Mercer. A pause. Then his eyes widened. What happened? Claire asked. Ethan lowered the phone slowly. It's already started. He turned on the TV, mounted on the wall. The morning news channel flickered to life, studio anchors discussing the day's headlines. But then, the screen shifted to a breaking news banner. Mystery heiress to the Hale fortune emerges after years in hiding. Claire's stomach dropped. A photo filled the screen, a blurry shot of her leaving the clinic yesterday, taken from across the street. Then another one of her entering the penthouse building, illuminated by the street lamp. No, she whispered. How did they? The leak came from inside the Hale Financial Board, Ethan said grimly. Someone connected your grandmother's estate to your clinic visit and sold the information. And now the press is running with it. Vorfurter, the anchors continued excitedly. Sources say the heiress is a former nurse in New Jersey. Reports indicate she disappeared shortly after a sudden divorce. Some speculate she may be pregnant, which raises questions about the Hale succession. Claire covered her mouth, tears building. Her life, her babies, were now the morning entertainment for millions. But the nightmare deepened when the footage cut to a man standing outside the penthouse. Darren. He stood before a sea of microphones, rain misting around him like a dramatic backdrop. His expression was pained, almost heroic, clearly rehearsed. I'm here because I love my wife, he announced, voice cracking just enough to sound sincere. Claire is vulnerable. She left without warning. I'm terrified for her. And now I find out she's pregnant. Claire felt the air punch out of her lungs. Ethan cursed under his breath. He's trying to steal the narrative. And Portneau. Reporters shouted questions at Darren. Are you saying the heiress is carrying your child? Do you plan to reconcile? Are you claiming part of the Hale inheritance? Darren lowered his gaze just slightly enough to appear humble but wounded. I only want to keep my family safe, he said. And yes, I believe the babies are mine. Claire slammed her hand against the counter. He abandoned me, she cried. He threw me out. And now he wants sympathy? He wants access, Ethan replied darkly. To you, to the babies, to the money. Dr. Shore touched Claire's shoulder. You must stay calm. The triplets feel everything. But calm was impossible when Darren's final statement hit the screen. I plead with Claire. Please come home. Let's start fresh. For the children. Claire trembled with fury. He's using my babies to manipulate the world. Ethan turned off the TV. His voice dropped to a cold, decisive tone. Then, it's time you show the world the truth, not the version he's selling. Claire wiped her tears. Something hardened inside her, a steel she didn't know she possessed. What do I have to do? She asked. Ethan stepped closer, meeting her gaze squarely. You're going to make a public appearance today. Controlled, strategic, you'll look strong, protected, untouchable, and we will expose his lies. Claire nodded slowly. But before Ethan could outline the plan, his assistant burst into the penthouse breathless, panicked. Mr. Mercer, Darren Cole, is filing an emergency petition in court right now. He's claiming Claire is mentally unstable and unfit to make decisions. Claire's vision blurred. He what? The assistant swallowed. He's asking the court for immediate temporary guardianship over you. Is court. And with that single sentence, Claire realized Darren wasn't just after her fortune, he intended to own her entire life. The courthouse on Center Street buzzed like a hornet's nest. News vans lined the sidewalk, reporters swarming the entrance like predators scenting blood. Claire had never seen anything like it. Dozens of cameras, microphones, flashing lights, slicing through the cold Manhattan morning. But she didn't walk in alone. Ethan stayed on her left, a shield of calm steel. Dr. Shore walked on her right, her hand lightly supporting Claire's back. 2 security officers flanked them as they entered the building. The crowd erupted the moment they appeared. Claire, are you really pregnant? Is Darren telling the truth? Are the Hale heirs in danger? Do you plan to reconcile with your husband? Husband. The word twisted inside her like a blade. Inside the courtroom, the air felt colder, tighter. Darren sat at the petitioner's table in a navy suit that didn't quite hide the dark circles under his eyes. Yet he still managed to force a sympathetic smile when Claire entered, as if he were the injured party, not the man who abandoned her in the rain. He even had the nerve to stand. "Claire," he said softly, performing a motion like an actor begging for applause. "I'm glad you're here. I've been so worried." Her stomach churned. Ethan leaned toward her. "Don't respond. Let him bury himself." The judge, a stern woman with a reputation for sniffing out manipulation, took her seat. "This emergency petition is highly irregular, Mr. Cole. State your reasoning." Darren clasped his hands dramatically. "Your Honor, my wife disappeared without a word. She's unstable, overwhelmed, and clearly being manipulated by strangers trying to control her inheritance. I'm only trying to keep her safe. She needs a familiar environment. She needs family. And well. Claire nearly laughed at the absurdity of it. Ethan rose slowly. "Your Honor, may I?" "Proceed, Mr. Mercer." Ethan approached the bench with icy control. "Mr. Cole's petition is a transparent attempt to seize control over Miss Wyndham and, by extension, the Hale estate. We have documented proof that he forced her out of their home immediately before the divorce was finalized. Text messages, voicemails, witness statements." He placed a folder on the judge's desk. Darren stiffened. Ethan wasn't done. "Furthermore, Miss Wyndham is under medical supervision for a high-risk pregnancy. The claim that she is unstable is baseless, manipulative, and, if I may be blunt, dangerously self-serving." The judge scanned the documents, her expression sinking into a frown. "Mr. Cole," she said, "these messages, they paint a very different picture." Darren's composure fractured. "Claire was emotional. She misunderstood. She has always been fragile." Claire stood. Her voice didn't tremble. "Your Honor, I worked as a pediatric nurse for 8 years. I paid for most of our fertility treatments. I supported him through every failed business venture. And the night I needed him most, he threw me out with a suitcase." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. "I am pregnant with triplets," she continued, hand resting on her belly, "and he didn't ask about my health. He didn't ask if I was safe. He didn't ask if I was alive. And 40 now." Ethan glanced at her with quiet pride. Darren sputtered. She's lying." The judge slammed her gavel. "Enough. Mr. Cole, your emergency petition is denied." Relief rushed through Claire so fast she nearly swayed. But the judge continued. "And given the concerning evidence provided, this court is granting Miss Wyndham temporary exclusive decision-making power over her medical care, living arrangements, and security. Mr. Cole, any attempt to contact her outside of legal counsel will result in sanctions." Darren's face twisted anger, swallowing the last of his false charm. He leaned forward, eyes burning into Claire. "You don't understand what you're getting into," he hissed. "That money isn't safe. Those babies aren't safe. You don't even know who's coming for you." The room fell silent. Ethan stepped closer. "Who's coming, Darren?" But Darren shut his mouth, jaw clenching. As security escorted him out, he shot Claire one last look, a mix of warning and fear. A fear she didn't understand. Not yet. Because just as Ethan gathered the documents, his phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. He read it once, twice. His face drained. "Claire," he whispered, turning the screen toward her. It showed a photo of her grandmother's journal open, pages torn, lying on the floor of the penthouse. And beneath it, scrawled in red ink, were the words, "She belongs to us." The ride back to the penthouse felt like drifting through a nightmare. Police escorts flanked the vehicle, sirens muted but ever present. Ethan held his phone tightly, knuckles white, as he reread the threatening message. "Doctor." Shore clutched her medical bag as if it were armor. Claire sat in the middle seat, arms protectively wrapped around her belly, her grandmother's words echoing violently in her mind. "You will not understand the danger until it stands at your door." Now danger wasn't just standing at her door, it had stepped inside. When they reached the penthouse, the place was swarming with private security and NYPD investigators. The front door, which had been locked, showed no signs of forced entry. Yet the journal lay exactly as the photo depicted, sprawled on the floor, pages ripped out, red ink staining the hardwood like spilled blood. Ethan picked up the journal with gloved hands. "This wasn't a break-in," he muttered. "It was a message." A detective approached. "We reviewed the footage. Someone disabled the hallway cameras for 12 minutes. Claire's throat tightened. 12 minutes. Enough time to get in and out. Too clean, Ethan said. Whoever did this knows professional tactics. But Claire wasn't thinking about tactics. She was thinking about the babies. About the 3 fragile heartbeats she carried, already fighting to stay alive. She pressed a hand to her stomach, inhaling shakily. Dr. Shore placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You need to lie down. Stress can trigger contractions. Claire nodded numbly and allowed herself to be guided to the bedroom. The city lights flickered outside the window like restless stars. She tried to breathe slowly, to calm the pounding in her chest, but her thoughts kept spiraling. Who wanted her? Who wanted her children? And why did Darren look afraid in the courtroom? As Claire lay down, Ethan stepped into the hallway to take a call from one of his contacts. His voice dropped to a low growl. Find out who knows she's the heir. Dig into the Hale board someone leaked. And check Darren's financial records. He's desperate. Desperate men make alliances they don't understand. Meanwhile, Darren sat alone in a dingy Lower East Side bar, his tie loosened, his eyes wild. He slammed a glass of whiskey onto the counter, ignoring the bartender's glare. He was unraveling. His world, built on lies and borrowed charm, was collapsing faster than he could rebuild it. He'd lost his job 2 weeks earlier, terminated quietly after clients complained. Madison had left him after discovering he was broke. His landlord served an eviction notice. And now the estate he thought might save him had slipped even further out of reach. But worst of all, he had partnered with a man he barely knew. A man named Victor Hale. Victor claimed to be a distant relative, one cut out of the Hale inheritance decades ago after a bitter family feud. He approached Darren outside the penthouse the night before, speaking calmly, confidently, as if he already understood all of Darren's desperation. She's pregnant with Hale heirs, Victor had murmured, and that makes her valuable. To you and to me. In wealth. Darren, drowning in panic and debt, didn't question him. He just listened. But now, sitting at the bar, Darren's hands shook. Victor's promise of restoring what was rightfully his suddenly felt too dark, too real. And the warning he gave Darren before walking away echoed like a threat. She belongs to the Hale bloodline, not to you, not to the world. Bring her to me, and you'll be rewarded. Darren swallowed hard. His chest tightened with something he refused to name fear. Because he finally realized Victor wasn't just angry or entitled. He was dangerous. Darren pulled out his phone, staring at Claire's contact, the one he'd been forbidden to use. He whispered to himself, voice trembling, "What have I done?" Before he could decide whether to warn Claire or chase the money, the bar TV switched abruptly to breaking news. A live reporter stood outside the courthouse, saying, "Rumors confirm the heiress is hospitalized tonight after a security breach at her residence. Sources indicate possible complications with her pregnancy." Darren shot to his feet, color draining from his face. Complications? No, this wasn't supposed to. But it was too late. His dangerous alliance had triggered a chain he could no longer control. And at that exact moment, in the penthouse bedroom, Claire felt a sudden, stabbing pain sharp enough to make her scream. The scream tore through the penthouse like a blade, sharp enough to freeze every person in the hallway. Ethan dropped his phone. Dr. Shore sprinted faster than someone her age should have been able to. Security officers jolted to attention. Claire curled on the bed, fingers gripping the sheets so tightly her knuckles blanched. The pain came again, harder, deeper, radiating through her abdomen like something was ripping from the inside. Her breaths came in shallow gasps. No, please," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Not now. Please, not my babies." Dr. Shore slid beside her instantly. "Claire, look at me. Are they moving? Are you bleeding? Talk to me." I don't know," she choked out, clutching her stomach. It hurts so much." Ethan turned pale. "Is she going into labor?" 31 weeks, Dr. Shore muttered. "Too early, much too early. It could be preterm labor or placental stress from the shock." She shot Ethan a look. "We need to get her to Mount Sinai, now." But leaving the penthouse wasn't safe. Cameras were down. Someone had already infiltrated her home. And Victor Hale, whatever he wanted, would not hesitate to use Claire's condition to strike. Ethan's jaw clenched. "We move with full escort." Security mobilized instantly. Within minutes, the building's underground garage roared to life with black SUVs, Lights off, windows tinted. Rain hammered the pavement as they loaded Claire inside. Dr. Shore holding her hand, whispering calming words she could barely hear. The convoy pulled into traffic. But something was wrong. A black sedan slipped into their line. Then another behind them. Ethan's eyes narrowed. We're being followed. Claire's pulse skyrocketed. Every contraction felt like a knife. Every passing second felt like a countdown. Dr. Shore placed a hand on her sternum. Breathe, Claire. Stay with me. Your babies need oxygen. A sharp turn. Sirens suddenly blared. The trailing cars accelerated. They're cutting us off, the driver shouted. Ethan grabbed the radio. Do not stop. Push through. If they want her alive, they won't ram us. But he couldn't guarantee that. Claire whimpered, clutching her belly. Ethan, she whispered, tears streaking her face. What if they come for the babies? They won't, he snapped, voice cracking under the pressure. Not while I'm alive. The chase forced the convoy through side streets, speeding toward the hospital. Finally, NYPD backup intercepted, boxing out the trailing sedans. The SUVs peeled away just in time, as an ambulance met them at the emergency entrance. Claire was lifted out on a stretcher, her face pale, her breaths ragged. Inside the delivery ward, chaos erupted, nurses running, monitors beeping. Claire was hooked up to machines, as Dr. Shore barked instructions. Fetal heart monitors now. Get magnesium drip ready. Where's OB on call? A young resident rushed in, clearly startled. We're stabilizing her 3 fetuses, heart rates dropping. Claire gripped Dr. Shore's wrist. Don't let them die. Don't let them die. Fight. Dr. Shore leaned close, tears in her eyes. Fight for them, Claire. They need you awake. Hours blurred into something surreal. A storm raged outside the hospital windows, thunder rattling the glass. Every time a monitor beeped irregularly, Claire felt pieces of her soul falling away. Finally, the contractions eased. The fetal heart rates steadied. Her breathing returned to something close to normal. Dr. Shore exhaled shakily. You're not out of danger, but the labor has stopped, for now. Ethan entered the room, soaked from rain, his tie askew. His relief was so palpable, it nearly buckled him. But behind him stood someone else. Someone Claire never expected to see again. Someone who shouldn't have known where she was. Someone who once loved her and once broke her. His voice cracked as he stepped forward. Claire, I'm here, Darren. But his expression, it wasn't arrogant. It wasn't manipulative. It was terrified. And he whispered words that made Ethan's head snap up, his entire face darkening. Victor Hale, he's coming for the babies tonight. For a full minute, the hospital room fell into stunned silence. Machines beeped softly, rain drummed against the windows, and Claire stared at Darren as if he were a ghost risen to deliver the final blow. You warned us? Ethan asked, stepping between him and Claire. Darren nodded shakily. Victor's not just angry, he's unhinged. He wants the Hale bloodline under his control, and he'll take the babies the moment they're born, even if he has to go through you. Claire's breath hitched, her hand instinctively covering her stomach. Why are you telling us this now? Darren swallowed, shame flickering on his face. Because I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought Victor was just a bitter relative looking for justice. But he showed me something. Documents, photos, journals. He knew things only someone who'd been watching your family for decades would know. He wants the Hale Empire, Claire, and he doesn't care who gets hurt. Ethan's voice sharpened. Where is he now? Darren shook his head helplessly. He said he had business tonight, that he didn't need me anymore. Dr. Shore paled. He's making a move. Suddenly, Ethan's phone lit up with a message from his security chief. We intercepted chatter. Victor isn't going to the hospital. He's going somewhere else. Somewhere symbolic. Somewhere public. He's going to claim he's the rightful Hale heir. Tonight? Ethan's eyes widened. Oh no, the Hale Foundation Gala. It's happening right now at the plaza. Claire blinked. What does that have to do with me? Ethan turned to her with urgency. Everything. That gala is the annual event where the Hale Power Circle gathers. If Victor announces himself as the sole descendant before you're officially introduced, he can destabilize the board and force a succession claim. But I'm in a hospital bed, Claire said breathlessly. I can't go to a gala. You don't need to walk the red carpet, Ethan said. You need to appear. publicly, even briefly. Show the board you're alive, safe, and the rightful heir. Victor can't override a living, confirmed successor. Dr. Shore placed a firm hand on Claire's bedrail. Medically, she's stable enough to be transported for a controlled appearance, but only for a short time. Stress could trigger labor again. Claire's heart pounded. But if I don't go, Victor wins, Ethan finished. The decision clawed at her. She was exhausted, terrified, barely holding herself together. But she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for 3 unborn children, and for a legacy built by a grandmother who spent her last breath trying to protect her. Claire inhaled shakily. Then I'll go. Ethan nodded once, determination burning in his eyes. We disguise the medical transport. She arrives through the service entrance, just 10 minutes on stage. Then straight back. Darren stepped forward, voice cracking. Let me help, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I can do something, anything. Ethan glared. You've done enough. But Claire surprised them both. If he can help protect the babies tonight, she whispered, then let him. Bring Stram. Hentra says. Darren's eyes filled with something raw regret, fear, maybe redemption, but this wasn't the time to analyze it. Within the hour, Claire was dressed in a simple silk gown provided by the foundation, a deep, midnight blue that draped gently over her baby bump. Her hair was swept into a loose, soft updo. She didn't look like a woman who had fought off premature labor hours earlier. She looked like a Hale. The medical transport, disguised as a private ambulance, brought her to the plaza's underground entrance. The moment she stepped out, she felt the electricity of the gala humming through the walls, laughter, champagne glasses, camera clicks. But as they approached the backstage corridor, a strange quiet enveloped the space. Too quiet. Ethan slowed. Something's wrong. A shadow detached itself from the far end of the hallway. Victor Hale stepped into the light, smiling a smile that did not reach his eyes. Welcome, Claire, he said smoothly. You arrived just in time. And behind him, 2 men closed the exit doors with an echoing click. For a moment, Claire couldn't breathe. Victor Hale stood only a few yards away, dressed in a pristine tuxedo, every inch of him too composed. His smile was calm, civilized, almost charming, but his eyes were shards of winter glass. Cold, controlled, possessing. Don't move, Ethan murmured, subtly shifting his body between Claire and Victor. But Victor raised a hand in a mock gesture of peace. Relax, Mr. Mercer. If I wanted harm, we wouldn't be having a conversation. 2 men, broad-shouldered, silent, unmistakably trained, blocked the only exit behind them. The hallway smelled faintly of cologne and old marble, the muffled roar of the gala just beyond the wall. Claire's pulse thundered so hard she feared the babies inside her could feel every tremor. Victor stepped closer. I must say, Claire, you look far more like a Hale than I expected. The jawline, the eyes, the posture. Evelyn was right to hide you. A jewel like you in the wrong hands, tragic. Ethan snapped. You have 30 seconds to explain what you want. Victor chuckled softly. Always so dramatic, these attorneys. I only want what belongs to me, what my family built, what was stolen from us decades ago. The Hale Empire was never Evelyn's alone. My grandfather was pushed out illegally, might I add, and the board buried the truth. He turned his gaze to Claire. And then, you appeared. Convenient, isn't it? The lost granddaughter, the inexperienced nurse, suddenly inheriting billions in assets, and soon, heirs. Claire's voice came out thin but steady. I didn't ask for any of this. No, Victor said with a nod. But you carry it now, and so will your children. His tone sharpened. You're pregnant with the next generation of Hale blood. That gives you leverage. It gives you power. And power, my dear Claire, needs guidance. Ethan stepped forward, jaw tight. You're not guiding anyone. Step back. Victor ignored him, eyes locked on Claire. I'm offering an alliance. You present yourself to the board tonight with me at your side. I'll validate your claim, you'll validate mine. Together, we restore the rightful structure of the Hale dynasty. Your children will be protected. You will be protected. And I, his smile deepened, will finally take my place at the head of the empire. Claire's stomach twisted. And if I refuse? Victor leaned in, voice low enough that only she could hear. Then someone else will raise your children for you. Claire's blood ran ice-cold. Ethan erupted. Enough. He moved swiftly, positioning himself fully between Claire and Victor. You're threatening a pregnant woman, a Hale heir, on the property of the plaza. You think that ends well for you? Victor tilted his head. You misunderstand. I'm giving her a choice. Darren, who had been silent until now, stepped forward shakily. Victor, stop. She's not part of your feud. Leave her alone. Victor didn't even turn toward him. You've served your purpose, Mr. Cole. Darren's voice cracked. I didn't sign up for kidnapping. Yet, here you are, Victor replied. Ethan reached into his jacket not for a weapon but for his phone, ready to call security. Victor lifted a finger. I wouldn't do that. Not unless you want your grandmother's journal to surface online. Every secret, every deal, every scandal, the market would devour the Hale empire in minutes. Ethan froze. Victor turned his attention back to Claire, his voice softening as though they were discussing dinner plans. So, what will it be? Walk with me and secure your future, or walk away and lose everything you've inherited? Claire's breath trembled. Her gaze drifted to the wall behind Victor. The faint shadow of the main ballroom lights flickered like a heartbeat, reminding her of why she came. Her babies. Her grandmother's legacy. Her right to exist without fear. Slowly, Claire lifted her chin. I choose. But before the words left her mouth, a deafening bang exploded from the end of the hallway. The exit doors swung open, slammed by a force none of them expected. Security flooded in, and at the front, eyes blazing, stood a man Claire never expected to see again. Ethan whispered in shock, "What the hell is he doing here?" As the man stepped forward and said, "Claire, you're coming with me now." The hallway erupted into chaos the moment the doors blew open. Security officers stormed in, but it wasn't them Claire saw first. It was the man at the front, broad-shouldered, rain-soaked, eyes burning with a fierce determination she had never seen before. Noah Hale, her grandmother's former head of private security. A man Evelyn trusted more than any board member. A man who disappeared the day Evelyn died. But he wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't even supposed to know Claire existed. Yet here he was. Noah? Claire breathed, stunned. Ethan stiffened. How did you find us? Noah didn't answer him. His attention was locked on Claire, scanning her face, her trembling hands, the tension in her posture. You shouldn't be on your feet, he said, voice low, deep, protective. And you sure as hell shouldn't be alone with him. Victor's polite smile faded. Noah Hale, I thought you crawled back into whatever hole you came from after Evelyn's death. Noah stepped forward, radiating quiet danger. Funny, I was thinking the same about you. Victor scoffed. You ran from this family. I'm reclaiming it. You're delusional, Noah replied. And you're not touching Evelyn's granddaughter. Claire stared at Noah, her pulse racing. Granddaughter, hearing the words spoken with such certainty, rooted her somehow, like she finally had someone on her side who understood the stakes without explanation. Victor's eyes sharpened. So you told her, did you? That Evelyn raised you like a son? That she trusted you more than her own children? Did you tell her why? Claire blinked, Noah's jaw clenched. What is he talking about? She whispered. Victor smirked. Ask him about the night Evelyn died. Ask him what he was doing there. Noah didn't flinch. Don't listen to him, Claire. He's twisting things. But doubt flickered in her chest. She didn't want it to, but Victor was surgical with manipulation, slicing precisely where it hurt. Ethan stepped in. We don't have time for this. Claire needs to get on that stage. Victor snapped his fingers. The two men behind him reached into their jackets. Security reacted instantly, shouting, drawing their own weapons, forcing Victor's men back. Shouts filled the corridor, a chaotic tangle of threats and commands. Noah grabbed Claire's arm, not harshly, but firmly. We're leaving, now. End quote. Claire hesitated, breath trembling. I need to appear on stage. If I don't, the board. You can't appear if you're dead, Noah cut in, his voice like steel. Victor won't let you walk into that ballroom without a spectacle. Ethan moved toward them. Noah, she has to be seen. If she disappears now, Victor wins. If she shows up even for 1 minute, he loses all leverage. Noah growled under his breath. This is insanity. Then, a sudden scream echoed from the ballroom. A woman shouting, glass shattering. All three turned. Victor's smile widened. "Oh good," he said softly. "They've begun without us." Claire's blood ran cold. "What did you do?" Victor shrugged. "Just accelerated the process. The board is frightened. They want answers. Who better to guide them than me?" Ethan pushed Claire behind him. "Stay back." But Victor took a step forward, voice dripping with triumph. "Walk onto that stage, Claire, and I'll ensure the world sees you not as the heir, but as a terrified, unstable woman dragged into a legacy she doesn't understand. I will make them believe you're unfit to lead anything, not even your own children." A tremor ripped through Claire's chest. She felt her babies twist, reacting to her fear. Noah leaned close, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have to do this tonight." But Claire straightened. For the first time, her fear folded into something else. Resolve. "I'm not running," she said quietly. "Not from him, not from any of this." Even Noah looked stunned. Ethan smiled faintly. "That's Evelyn's granddaughter." Claire took a step toward the stage entrance. Every muscle ached, every breath hurt. But every heartbeat inside her reminded her who she was fighting for. Noah reached out, gripping her hand not romantically, but protectively. "If we're doing this," he said softly, "you're not doing it alone." But before they could move another inch, a security officer sprinted down the hallway, panicked. "Mercer, Claire, the stage, something's happening. Someone has a mic, someone claiming to be the heir." Ethan's face drained. "Who?" Claire demanded. "Who's speaking?" The guard swallowed hard. "Darren Cole." The moment Darren's name left the guard's mouth, Claire felt the air suck out of the hallway. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Even Victor's smirk faltered, as if he hadn't anticipated this turn. Ethan cursed under his breath. Noah's hand tightened protectively around Claire's arm. "He wouldn't," Claire whispered, but she already knew he would. He was desperate, cornered, capable of anything. Ethan pulled out his phone, swiping through security feeds. "He's on stage. He must have slipped in through the board entrance. Damn it, he's addressing the entire foundation." Ofer. The muffled echo of Darren's voice vibrated through the walls, magnified by the ballroom's grand acoustics. "And I, Darren Cole, stand before you tonight not as an outsider, but as the father of the next Hale heirs." Claire staggered back, pressing a hand to her belly. He said it. He used her pregnancy. He turned her children into leverage. Noah exchanged a dark look with Ethan. "We move now." They pushed forward, but Victor stepped into their path, all polite venom. "Going somewhere?" "I think we should let the man speak. After all," his eyes glittered, "he may be more valuable to me than I realized." Noah growled, "Get out of our way." Victor shrugged, stepping aside with an elegant bow. "By all means, go rescue your damsel. I'll enjoy watching you fail." Ethan didn't hesitate. He grabbed Claire's hand and led her down the corridor toward the stage wings. As they neared, Darren's voice grew louder, more frantic, more theatrical. "Claire is being manipulated by outsiders, treacherous relatives, attorneys with their own agendas. She's not safe with them. She belongs with me. With the father of her children." Gasps erupted from the ballroom crowd. Claire felt physically sick. Ethan hissed. "He's trying to get the board to grant him interim custodial power over you and the estate." "That's impossible," Claire whispered. "It won't be," Noah said grimly, "if he convinces them you're unstable or being coerced." All them. They pushed through the final curtain just in time to see Darren pacing across the elevated stage under a chandelier of glittering crystal. Cameras flashed. Donors and Hale board members stared in stunned fascination. Behind him, a massive golden banner read, "The Hale Foundation. Legacy Night." Darren's image was projected across towering LED screens. He lifted a trembling hand. "Claire, if you can hear me, please come home. I forgive you. And I forgive whoever convinced you to hide the pregnancy from me." "Forgive her?" Claire's knees nearly buckled at the sheer audacity. And then, Darren made his fatal move. "I also have documents to prove my right to stand here." He held up a thick envelope, shaking it dramatically. "Proof that Claire is unwell. That she is overwhelmed. That she is vulnerable, and that she left our marriage in a state of emotional collapse." "And Forey." Noah muttered, "What the hell is he talking about?" Ethan inhaled sharply. "He's lying, but lies work fast in a room like this." Darren opened the envelope, but the papers inside spilled across the stage like a waterfall of white. Receipts, pharmacy forms, medical records, but not Claire's. Darren froze. What? Noah's eyes widened. He grabbed the wrong envelope. Ethan nearly smiled. No, someone switched them. The front row gasped as donors leaned closer. The nearest board member lifted a sheet and read aloud. This is your psychiatric evaluation from last year, Mr. Cole. The ballroom erupted. Claire stared, stunned. He had a psych evaluation? Ethan whispered. Court mandated. After an altercation at his old firm, someone must have leaked it tonight. The room buzzed with shock as Darren stumbled backward, pale. No, this was supposed to. A board member rose. You attempted to deceive us. You endangered Miss Wyndham. You weaponized her pregnancy for personal gain. Security. Guards began moving. Darren panicked. No, listen to me. Claire is in danger. Victor is. And that was the moment Victor stepped quietly onto the opposite side of the stage, unnoticed by most. But Claire saw him. Saw the knife glinting near his cuff. Saw the smile of a man ready to burn the world down. She screamed. Noah. Noah lunged forward, just as Victor made his move toward Darren. And in front of hundreds of witnesses, Victor Hale struck with a speed no one could stop. Chaos didn't just erupt, it detonated. A scream tore through the ballroom as Victor lunged toward Darren with the glint of cold steel. The chandelier light flashed across the blade, illuminating the twisted triumph in Victor's smile. Guests stumbled back from their tables, champagne flutes shattering against the marble floor. Noah moved first. He wasn't fast. He was instinct. He hit Darren from the side, knocking him flat as the knife sliced through empty air. The blade missed Darren's throat by an inch, grazing Noah's forearm instead. Blood bloomed instantly, bright against his white cuff. Security roared forward. Ethan pulled Claire behind a speaker column. Her heart hammered so violently she felt the triplets shift inside her. Victor didn't flee. He relishes the chaos. You see? Victor shouted, pointing at Darren as guards surrounded him. This man is a liability, a fraud, a parasite leeching off the Hale name. Darren, pale and shaking, scrambled backwards across the stage. You tried to kill me. Victor tilted his head. You were useful until you weren't. Gasps rippled, cameras flashed like lightning. Ethan leaned toward Claire. We need to get you out now. Noah can handle himself, but you cannot be in this room another minute. But Claire pushed his hands away, her voice trembling but firm. No, I can't run. If I disappear now, Victor wins. This is exactly what he wants, to make me look scared, weak, unprepared. Ethan stared at her, then nodded. Then you step out only when I say. Not before. On stage, Victor tried to break through the guards, furious at the idea of losing control. I am the rightful heir. I was promised everything Evelyn stole from our side of the family. Noah wiped blood from his arm. You were promised nothing but a restraining order. Victor snarled. And then it happened. A board member, a dignified woman in her 70s, rose from her seat. Victor Hale, she said with unshakable authority, your grandfather was disowned because he attempted a hostile takeover. The Hale board has spent decades keeping your family from destroying what Evelyn built. Victor froze. No, that's not true. She stole it, she stole everything. Another board member stood. Your grandfather forged documents to seize control. With thanks for watching. A third, Evelyn protected the entire foundation from people like you. Victor shook his head violently, denial unraveling into madness. Lies, all lies. And then Claire stepped forward. The entire ballroom held its breath. Her midnight blue gown glimmered under the chandelier. Her hand rested over the swell of her pregnancy. Her posture, though fragile, radiated a calm strength that silenced every whisper. She walked onto the stage. Ethan whispered urgently, Claire, slow, breathe. But Claire didn't stop. Noah moved to intercept her, but she shook her head and stood facing Victor, separated by only a few steps and a line of stunned security. Victor, she said softly, you don't want the Hale legacy. You want revenge for something that ended before either of us was born. He trembled. You were hidden. You think that was love? She hid you because she feared you'd be like them, like me. No, Claire whispered. She hid me because she wanted peace. Victor's face contorted, rage overtaking logic. She promised me a chance, she wrote it down. I saw it. He reached into his jacket. Security shouted. Guests screamed. Victor pulled out a torn page. A page from Evelyn's journal. Claire's breath hitched. Victor held it up. This proves. But Noah stepped closer. Voice low, lethal. That page is fake. Evelyn never wrote in red ink. Victor blinked. Just for a moment. A fatal moment. Because the board members erupted, shouting orders. Subdue him. Arrest him. He forged evidence. Security tackled Victor. The page fluttered from his hand like a dying leaf. Victor howled, thrashing against the floor, eyes locked on Claire. This isn't over. The bloodline will be mine. Those babies, Noah snapped. He lunged forward, pinning Victor harder. Don't you ever say her children's names again. The ballroom shook with the force of it. But Claire's world tilted, not from fear, but from a sudden, wrenching tightness in her abdomen. A contraction. Sharp, deep, wrong. She gasped, grabbing the podium. Ethan rushed to her side. Claire? Claire, look at me, stay upright. No, she whispered, shaking. Not now, please, not now. Her knees buckled. Noah caught her just before she hit the marble floor. And, as her vision blurred, she heard Victor laughing. Broken, manic, victorious. Because the floor beneath Claire was stained red. And she realized with horror that her water had broken far too early. The ballroom lights blurred into streaks of gold as Claire collapsed into Noah's arms. Gasps rippled across the crowd, shock, fear, pity, swallowing the room in a suffocating hush. A crimson pool spread beneath her dress, staining the marble like spilled wine. Call an ambulance, Ethan shouted, already pulling off his jacket to press against Claire's legs. Move. Clear a path. Noah scooped her into his arms, holding her as if the world might snatch her away. Claire, stay with me, he murmured, voice breaking. Stay awake. Look at me. Claire tried to speak, but only a cracked whisper escaped. My babies, they're not ready. You're going to make it, Noah said, though his voice betrayed terror. All three of you. Behind them, Victor, pinned to the floor, laughed through bloodied teeth, madness shining in his eyes. Too early, too fragile, the line ends tonight. Security shoved his head down harder. Noah didn't even look at him. If he did, he might have killed him right there. The ballroom erupted into frantic motion. Donors parted to form a corridor as paramedics rushed inside with a stretcher. Doctor. Shore appeared at Noah's side, somehow faster than anyone else, barking medical orders with laser focus. She's in preterm labor, heavy rupture, fetal distress likely. We need OR prep at Mount Sinai right now. Claire winced as another contraction tore through her. Her fingers clutched Noah's shirt, twisting into the fabric. It hurts, Noah. It hurts so much. I'm here, he whispered. He had never sounded so desperate. As they raced her toward the exit, Darren stumbled after them, eyes wide with horror, not the selfish kind that once fueled him, but something raw, human. Claire, he cried. Claire, I didn't mean God. Please don't let her. Noah blocked him with a single glare. You've done enough. For once, Darren didn't argue. The ambulance door slammed shut. Ethan climbed in beside Claire. Noah insisted on riding up front so Claire could see him through the glass window. The sirens wailed. Rain hammered the city. And 3 tiny heartbeats fluttered inside Claire, struggling to hold on. At Mount Sinai, the chaos escalated. Nurses swarmed her, attaching monitors, inserting IVs, wheeling her into a brightly lit operating room. The smell of antiseptic flooded her senses. Machines beeped too fast, too slow, then too fast again. Dr. Shore squeezed her hand. Claire, listen carefully. We're going to perform an emergency C-section. The babies are under stress. You may bleed heavily, but we're ready for you. Just breathe. I'm not ready, Claire sobbed. They're not ready. But they're fighters, Doctor, Shore whispered. Just like their mother. Her vision blurred. Ethan leaned over her. You're going to wake up. You're going to hold them. You're going to be their mother. A mask lowered over her face. The room dimmed. Voices faded. Claire slipped into darkness. Hours later, the storm outside calmed, but the hospital hallways buzzed with tension. Noah paced like a caged animal. Blood from his arms soaked through fresh bandages. He didn't care. Darren sat on a bench, head in his hands, shaking uncontrollably. Ethan spoke quietly with hospital security, coordinating Victor's arrest and ensuring the board understood the truth. Finally, Dr. Shore pushed through the double doors. All three men froze. Her expression was tired, but not broken. "They're alive," she said softly. Noah exhaled so hard, his body buckled. Darren let out a sob. Ethan closed his eyes in relief. "But," Dr. Shore continued, "they're extremely premature. 2 are stable. 1 baby C is struggling." "And Claire?" Noah asked, voice barely audible. Dr. Shore hesitated. "She lost a dangerous amount of blood. We stabilized her, but she hasn't woken up yet." Noah's face drained. "She needs to wake up," he whispered, fists clenching. "She needs to see her babies." Dr. Shore placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "She can hear voices. Talk to her. Help her find her way back." Noah didn't wait. He pushed past the doors toward recovery. But down the hall, a police officer approached Darren. "Mr. Cole, we have questions about your involvement with Victor Hale." Darren looked up, hollow-eyed. "I'll tell you everything," he murmured. "Just let me see her first." The officer shook his head. "Not tonight." Darren closed his eyes in defeat. Meanwhile, Noah reached Claire's bedside. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow. Tubes and monitors surrounded her like a fragile cocoon. He took her hand, gentle, trembling. "Claire," he whispered, voice cracking, "come back, they're waiting for you." Her eyelids flickered, ever so faintly. And then somewhere down the neonatal hallway, an alarm went off for baby C. The alarm from the neonatal unit shattered the quiet corridor, slicing through Noah's breathless whisper like lightning. He jerked his head toward the glowing red light down the hall, baby C's station. Nurses rushed past him, their calm urgency signaling danger. Noah squeezed Claire's cold hand. "Stay with me," he pleaded. "Your baby needs you. Please, Claire, wake up." But her eyes stayed closed, her breathing shallow, as if she were trapped somewhere between the world she fought to survive and the one she hadn't reached yet. Inside the NICU, doctors fought to stabilize the smallest triplet, a boy barely larger than Noah's palm. His tiny chest fluttered unevenly, machines struggling to keep up with his failing lungs. The monitors blared relentlessly. Dr. Shore appeared in the doorway, eyes tight with grief. "He's fading. We need the mother's voice. It can stimulate neural response even in critical preemies." Noah didn't hesitate. He lifted Claire into his arms, not far, just enough for her head to rest against his chest, and carried her slowly into the NICU. Nurses cleared a path, recognizing the silent desperation in him. He sat in the rocking chair beside baby C's incubator and positioned Claire so she faced the frail, struggling infant. Her face, though pale, softened in the gentle NICU light. Noah guided her hand to the incubator window. "Claire," he whispered, voice breaking, "this is your son. Your fighter. He needs to hear you. He needs you to come back." Nothing. A flat silence settled over the room, thick with dread. Noah's throat tightened. He leaned closer, pressing his forehead against hers. "You survived heartbreak, threats, betrayal. You fought for them when you had nothing left. Don't stop now. Don't leave them. Don't leave me." His voice cracked fully on the last word. Then, a slight movement. Claire's fingers twitched against his. Noah's breath caught. Her eyelids fluttered once, twice, and then they opened, weak, unfocused, but alive. Her lips parted. "My baby?" The NICU nurse gasped. "She's responsive." Noah nearly collapsed in relief. "He's fighting, Claire, but he needs you." Claire's gaze drifted to the incubator, where baby C's chest trembled. Tears filled her eyes instantly. With effort, she leaned closer to the glass. Her forehead touched it gently. "Sweetheart," she whispered, her voice barely more than a trembling breath. "Mommy's here. I'm not going anywhere. You're strong. You can stay. You can stay with me." The heart monitor beeped irregularly, then steadied. A soft, rhythmic pattern. A collective gasp swept through the nurses. "He's responding. He heard her. He's stabilizing." "If you wanted disfessive." Noah covered his face, tears falling freely. Claire sobbed quietly, whispering to her tiny son over and over, "Stay with me. Stay with me." After 30 agonizing minutes, baby C's vitals improved enough for the crisis alarm to be silenced. He wasn't safe yet, but he was holding on, just like his mother. The next day, sunlight streamed through the hospital windows, warm and forgiving. Ethan arrived with news. Victor Hale had been arrested, charged with attempted murder, extortion, and fraud. his forged documents and hidden finances exposed before the Hale Board. The Foundation unanimously voted to permanently ban him and restore all control to Claire as Evelyn's sole heir. Darren, shaken to his core, confessed everything to police. His cooperation earned him leniency but not redemption. When he asked Claire for forgiveness later, she didn't hate him. She simply said, "Some mistakes can be survived, some cannot be repeated. Thanks for watching." End quote. And she walked away. Weeks later, Claire stood in the NICU beside 3 tiny incubators, 3 lives she nearly lost. 3 heartbeats she fought the world for. Baby A and Baby B were thriving. Baby C, the fragile miracle, was eating better each day. Noah entered quietly, carrying a small bouquet of white peonies. "For you," he said softly, "Evelyn's favorite." Claire smiled, tears sparkling. "Thank you for not giving up on me, or them." In over one and chorus. He hesitated, then stepped closer, taking her hand gently. "I didn't protect you because of Evelyn," he said. "I protected you because his voice trembled. "Because somewhere along the way, you became my home." Claire inhaled sharply, overwhelmed. Her fingers tightened around his. "Noah, stay," she whispered. "Stay with us." His eyes softened with something warm. Something certain. "There's nowhere else I want to be." Degs 4. He leaned in, kissed her forehead slow, reverent, a promise of the life waiting ahead. Surrounded by beeping monitors and 3 tiny miracles, Claire realized the truth. This was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of a life she finally deserved. Rooted in love, protected by justice, and built on the resilience that carried her through every storm. And for the first time, all 3 of her babies slept peacefully, knowing their mother had won. So, our story comes to a close. And if you're still here with us right now, my wonderful friends, that means something in Claire's journey touched your heart in a way you maybe didn't expect. Maybe it reminded you of your own battles, your quiet nights, the moments you had to stand back up when life felt impossible. You know, the Stoics often said, "The obstacle is the way." Marcus Aurelius believed that every hardship isn't a punishment, but a doorway to becoming who we were meant to be. Claire lived that truth. She walked through betrayal, fear, and loss, only to discover her strength, her worth, and a new kind of love waiting for her on the other side. And maybe that's the message we can carry into our own lives. You are allowed to break, and you are allowed to rise again. Pain does not define you, your response to it does. As the Stoics say, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but your estimate of it. Boisadeng on Watha. If this story moved you, even a little, let us know. Hit like, share it with someone who might need this reminder today, and subscribe to stay with our little family here. We're growing together, and I'm so grateful you're here.